Welcome, watchers of Illusion, to a special video of confusion. And our normal videos are fairly confusing. As some of you may know from that intro, it's going to be a discussion video, but it's going to be on a special topic that's near and dear to our hearts. And that can be multiple things. But in this case, it's going to be the TV show Knightmare. Easily my favourite childhood show. I don't know where it ranks for you, but I know you really enjoyed it all the same.
Oh, it has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Not to be too warm and fuzzy about it, but yeah.
I think we can be rose tinted in this one to a certain degree.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah. It's pretty
probably
good.
just grime tinted in my case. I need to clean my glasses. We both really loved the show.
Yeah.
I remember very, very vividly Friday evenings. It was on at 20 to 5, and just that was Friday evenings for me.
Yeah.
I could not wait to watch that show.
Yeah.
And especially because it was in winter, it was dark, and the show seemed so adult, but it was still a children's show.
Yeah.
It felt like they weren't dumbing it down, and it felt like, I'm watching real great adventure, and
Well, my thing is, they did help you along the way. There's like 3 items on the table. And the dungeon master would always kind of give hints. Oh, maybe you want to think about taking that. If you mess up, that's it. You're dead. The next room. There's a bomb. You're dead. Oh, okay. No.
That did happen.
Yeah.
And I always found the episodes amusing where they'd have 2 items, and they'd maybe even gotten a clue either from one of the wall monsters or from a scroll.
Speaking of the wall monsters, I went back to watch Knightmare recently. They're all on YouTube.
Well, they may not be all on YouTube now, I don't know. But
they were when yeah. And anyway, kind of watching the first couple of episodes, and then the wall monster appears, like, oh, it is the wall monster, Granite Arse. Like, Granite Arse? Are you serious? I never picked that up as a kid. Granite Arse? Seriously? Yeah, Granite Arse, and then there was a second one who was another kind of stony name, but yeah, Granite Arse was the first wall monster.
He was indeed, and he'd of course give the contestants riddles.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd have to solve. Some of them were freaking hard.
Yeah, I mean,
I was watching them again as an adult on YouTube, sorry to cut it, and I'm kind of going...
Yeah, the show didn't really baby you, which it was good.
But they did try and be fair, and to be fair, Treguard, for those that... we kind of jumped into this, thinking people will know Knightmare, but a little rewind before I continue. You have a team of 4, 3 kind of advisors, 1 guy with a bucket on their head, called the Helmet of Justice, iconic, and that was to deal with the technical limitations.
Yeah.
They go into this adventure, which was all chroma key based. So think of how they do the weather forecast, that type of thing, but they used it to project you into this fantasy realm.
Yeah.
So convincing.
Yeah. So the one guy had the bucket on his head, and they couldn't see anything. They could only see what's at their feet.
Yeah.
And so, to stop them bumping into things, their 3 advisors had to tell them how to move. It would say, sidestep to the right, walk forward 3 paces. They walk forward, and then they're at the table, and they can gather things at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So their entire actions were controlled by the advisors.
Yeah. So you had this great, connectivity.
And
that's what made it so good.
You could see the ones that were good, they had it all worked out. 2 sidesteps to the left, rotate 90 degrees to the left, and they'd spin. And they had the actual movements all
much
worked out.
smoother.
Yeah.
And then
towards the later series,
that was the sidestep wasn't as common earlier on.
No.
But Treguard did help from time to time when he had to, and he tried and kind of, what did the scrolls say? Kind of.
Yeah.
And when he's emphasizing something like that, now to us as adults, you're kind of thinking, maybe you did something wrong. But no, then they'd often just, oh, feck you, Treguard, and the horse you rode in on. Well, and speaking of horses you rode in on, I used to love that original opening with the animated horse. Now, I love both versions.
Was that the Headless Horseman?
No. You're definitely thinking something else. It was just this knight, kind of, you could say it was very generic, a knight going through to the castle.
Yeah.
There was a great opening music in Everton that just set the scene. That just brought to mind when I said night. One thing on the revisit. Now, this video is a bit all over the place, but that's not to be surprised because we're talking about Knightmare.
Yeah.
The purpose of doing this video was to kind of give our thoughts on a new Knightmare that was done for Geek Week, and we'll get to that. But before we get to that, I want to just kind of talk about old Knightmare a little more, because I think any comments we have on a new one has to in some way be based on what we were expecting from the past, why we were expecting it. And let's be honest, this is a kind of a nerdy channel, and while this isn't strictly...
What makes you think that?
We did a food pickups video. That's very nerdy.
Okay, fair enough.
But you know, you kind of, this fits perfectly with it.
It really does, yeah.
I was amazed when I went back to watch it, just how compelling it still was. It actually held up incredibly well, I felt. Even the visual effects. I looked at Series 1, and you're not talking any really computer animation and all this sort of real traditional effects, chroma key and camera trickery and over, you know, lays and stuff. You could tell they're effects, but they don't jar you. They don't take you out of the adventure.
They were essentially irrelevant, I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for those of you who've never actually watched it, they had a mixture of... The background was done in CGI, but they had
actually, the background in the first series was paintings.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
David Rowe did the illustrations, and they are awesome. He recently put up, for download on his website, the high-resolution versions of those. And you just look at them. They are magnificent. He used to do video game cover art, and that's where Tim Child, the guy who created the series, found them.
I like that.
And he said, I like that style of artwork.
Yeah.
It was great.
It is great.
Yeah.
But that was never the major thing of it. I mean, that's what the advisor saw, and it kind of gave an idea about where you were, plus the exits. Whereas all the main things were done with actors. There's a table there, and there's a woman asking for help, and you know, goblins are coming, and it would actually be a guy with a spear. Yeah, the goblin horde. You know, that would sound, and it's like, right, you got to get out of there right now.
Right.
Run forward 5 paces. Just keep running. Don't care if you hit the wall. Run, 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 run. And then be an actor kind of jogging slightly on. But it would be an actor with a spear, dressed up as a goblin. Yeah, the whole thing was done in a mix of...
It's a mixture of... It's kind of augmented reality. The term we use today, you've kind of got this virtual setting and these real things. Yeah. And that's the key. It was actually the mixture. Because the virtual setting puts you somewhere you couldn't ordinarily go or cheaply with sets.
Yeah.
But when you're interacting with an actor, which is a real person, they were believable.
They were.
And when those goblins came after you, you were kind of detention.
Yeah, it's like, well, you know, I have a bucket on my head and I can't see anything. Like, I've never met this guy before, and he has a real spear. I'm getting out of here. That's it.
And the thing is, the advisors to be kind of like, side up the left, no, because they can see how close it is. Yeah. So you had, as they're getting, you know, into it and engrossed. Yeah. You as the spectator are also getting engrossed.
Yeah. Oh, you really are.
And grateful. I mean, okay, varied for team to team and for quest to quest, but it was remarkably compelling.
Yeah.
And it held up throughout. I felt most of the series. You know, you had a few slower episodes and whatnot. And one thing that I didn't realise until I rewatched it, and I don't know if you find the same, my memories of Knightmare sort of merged together. Whereas there's actually very distinct developments in Knightmare. You have early series and they have certain components. You have mid-series and they have certain components. And then you have late series and they have certain components. So you might say something like, and I'm going to say a room now, the Corridor of Blades.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that is so ingrained in Knightmare, I kind of just... It's in everything. It's always there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't in the early series.
No, it wasn't the first 3 or 4 series. I think it was either series 4 or 5 came in. But it became so iconic, you just, in your head, you kind of go, it's Knightmare. Yeah. But they only used it a few times, really. Well, about once or twice per series, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because it was in level 3, typically.
Okay, yeah.
So if you got to the Corridor of Blades, you were doing well. And for those who don't know the Corridor of Blades, but if you're this far into the video, you're probably a Knightmare fan.
Yeah.
The Corridor of Blades, you're basically on this conveyor belt, kind of like a travelator. It continues on straight. You're blind, and on the walls, left and right, you have 2 different heights. These blades are coming down, and you have to avoid them. Sounds so simple, but by God, the tension.
Except for it's all computer generated, so you don't see them.
You don't see it.
And your friends have to say, duck now, and you duck now. Of course, they're trying to time how well you will react to their shouting.
To their movements, yeah. Now, if you didn't panic, that room wasn't that hard. But it was the fear.
Yeah.
As soon as you heard, because the first blade would never hit you usually, and you'd hear this one go over your head, zing, and you're like, oh crap!
Yeah.
That you were more likely to mess up through panicking.
Yeah.
Than taking your time.
That's the way it happens.
That's what the room was designed for. But there was lots of components like that I kind of have merged in my mind as being quintessential Knightmare.
Yeah.
Another one was the ice shield.
Of course, that was late series.
Yeah. Mid-series actually. They brought in the ice shield. Now they kept it till the end, but they changed it. In the mid-series, they made a very big change, and they introduced outdoor locations. In the first 3 series, all indoor, all dungeons. And Tim Child wanted to expand it. So they went around they went around Britain and they filmed loads of castles. And they tried to digitize those kind of videos. Yeah. And they ended up trying different ways of digitizing, some of them less successful than others, and integrating them in with the rooms. And they used the ice shield then to kind of guide you through these outdoor venues. Yeah, they do. He put the shield on, and then you would have, say, a first-person view from the shield. Exactly. Yeah. Kind of like a precursor, I guess, to first-person video games.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But what I didn't realize as a child, or what I wasn't as aware of, or at least in my memories, most of that stuff was pre-scripted. Yeah. It was basically you're just playing a video loop, and there was nothing. No way to interact with it really, no way to change. So there was, when you were in the first early series, room by room by room, everything was, a potential threat, everything, you could die. But when you're on one of these pre-recorded ice shield walks... Yeah, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. You'd hear the wolves howl, you might hear something coming, but because you're not actually doing that walk, it's... Yeah. As an adult... It's made for better viewing, but perhaps not as fun playing the game. Even as an adult, I think revisiting it, as I'm more aware, it didn't stand up as well as other parts of the show. It was one of the things that maybe has aged a little more, which is they toned it down as later series went on. Series 4, when they introduced it, it kind of felt like, oh god, here we go again with another 50 minutes of ice shield walking. But they kind of balanced it, as you do. You try all these things. Like the very first episode of Knightmare is very slow. Yeah. If you were to go and watch it now, they take most of the episode to do one room. And it's a very simple room. It's like they have to stand on the letters open, O-P-E-N. Yeah. It's just navigate, walk to the letters, and that's it. And trying to figure it out and get them to do it, because they weren't going sidestep to the left. It was a case of... Walk over... No, over there, to your left. Walk over there. Yeah, walk over there. I have a bucket on my head. And that, of course, brings up the infamous... Where am I? Yeah. You're in a room. Yeah, that's great, thanks. Yeah. I'm in a green screen room. That's where I fucking am. With a table in front of me, but I need a bit more. But I did love... the thing about Knightmare that I genuinely loved was the interaction with the people involved. The interaction of the Dungeoneer and his advisors, and the interaction of the Dungeoneer and the actors they had involved. A woman would run up and go, "Oh, goblins are after me. I shall give you the key to the next level if you help me with them." And the advisors would go, "Say no, say no, say no. No. Too late, they're here anyway." So you do need this key, you're getting it, but work with me here. Sometimes, though, they would leave them in peril. Oh, really? Yeah, they say, right there, it's okay, you're dead. Yeah. You're dead next room. Because there was basically a winning and a losing status, and sometimes when you went into the losing status... That was it, yeah. Whatever. You're wasting your time at this point. Yeah. We may as well talk about the characters a little more, because I think you're right. It was, when they were interacting, that was some of the best moments. Yeah. And, Knightmare has a load of interesting characters throughout its history. I think we should talk about a few of our favourites. And when I think favourites, there's one character that comes outside of Treguard, I'm talking about in the dungeon, that comes screaming into my head. And imagine it'll be the same for you.
It's been a while since I've seen the later series, though, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Well, this person, I'm sure you would know him.
Go ahead.
He was a bit of a bad guy, you could say. Yeah, kind
Perhaps
of,
the bad guy?
Yes, maybe
yeah, okay,
the bad guy.
yeah.
Well, the bad guy only in the later series. He was not in the early series. He started in was series 4 or 5. But of course, it's Lord Fear. Excellent bad guy.
Yes.
And the guy who played him plays him so well.
In a very kind of carrying voice.
Yes.
Yeah, Shakespearean. In fact, probably has Shakespearean acting.
I don't think he does actually. Maybe he does. I don't know. But according to Tim Child, now this could be wrong. But from what I've heard, the guy who plays him, unfortunately I've forgotten his name. I think it was Mark something, but he's actually quite lazy. He's a lazy actor, but was incredibly passionate and enthusiastic and energetic about playing Lord Fear in Knightmare because he loved the role, he loved the character, he wanted to do it like you wouldn't believe. And you could, if you look at his performance, by God, he conveys that character.
Oh, he really
has,
does, yeah.
you know, contempt to his kind of underlings and his subservients, and the dialogue between the two of them, and the threats when they be looking at him in a spy shield sequence, and you put it down. It was so good. But did you know that guy who also played several other characters in the show?
Really?
He played a few of the merchants. God, I can't remember their names. There was a Chinese one, which was of course very, I guess, borderline racist these days.
I think we're even getting rid of the borderline at this point.
It was doing lots of the you know, the R's and the L's, mixing them up with the so sorry, that type of thing.
So yeah, it was pretty racist.
Yeah. But to be fair, there was a few amusing moments with it, and he was actually very good at improv.
Yeah.
There was a few people...
Which I think you needed to be with that. Yeah.
There was a few actors that weren't so good at improv, and he was good. The guy who played Julius Scaramounger, who was another merchant, and do wheeling dealing, he was kind of like a Del Boy type character.
Yeah.
He was very, very good at improv as well. And that's, I think, what made a lot of the characters stand out to me.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I also... out of characters that weren't per se in the dungeon, they also had assistants. Now they were very controversial. You had Pickle the Elf, and he generally was liked. But in the first series that he was in, by God, if he said, "Master, the ice shield, master," one more time, you'd throw a fucking ice shield at him. Because every single quest started off the same way in that series, and every single time he would have the exact same exclamation to the ice shield being in the exact same place.
Yeah, it's probably him who put it there.
It probably was, because a complete break in one episode, he went into the dungeon and helped the dungeoneer. Happened only once, the only time an assistant ever did that. And of course Tregar gave off something type of thing, but that happened once.
Interesting, I don't remember that.
Now of course I've watched all of them relatively recently, which is how they're a bit more fresh in my mind. And it was one of those things where I nearly couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
You know, you're watching an episode, and because it ends on a cliffhanger, you know, these quests would typically last maybe an hour if you were to win. So a 20-minute show, you're not going to do full episode. So I had this thing called temporal disturbing.
Yeah,
temporal
at the end, the gong would go, and you'd see they'd just pause the video, and the three assistants on the dungeon would be paused.
And
and Trigger would go, "Oh, we have no more time. Come back again." But didn't the last series end like halfway through the quest?
Let me see. The last few series, they started to do special last quests. In the first few series, they just did normal quests, and Traegar would basically whisk them out of the dungeon, and they'd be spellcast out.
Yeah.
But in the last few later series, they started to do kind of conclusion storylines. Now, what did they do in the last series?
Maybe it's just an urban myth. I had heard that they were midway through the last quest.
No, I remember it now. I actually do remember that last episode. And the guy, I could be mistaken, but I think the guy who was in that last quest might run Knightmare.com. Because it's a winning quest.
Huh.
The story was something along the lines of... Now, I think there was 2 winning quests in the last series, if my memory serves me. And
What was he going for?
I think it was either the sword or the chalice, or the shield or the cup.
Yeah, so any of them basically.
There was 4 things you go out to win.
And the cup was never gotten, was it?
I don't.
There was one of them that was never ever won.
I thought actually everything was won at least once.
No.
There was also one extra quest that was won, Free the Maiden. In Series 2 that was won. In Series 1, no one won. In Series 3,
spoilers.
No one won.
Spoilers!
Spoiler alert! Use a temporal disruption. But it's a 20-year-old show, Tony.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. And Series 3 was actually super hard then because it had, I think, more teams than any other series, and no one won. But anyway, last series, and this is definite spoiler, in the last episode, the team got a shortcut or something to the end of the game, to level 3. I think they skipped level 2. And they got near the end and there was a choice. And basically the production had decided initially that they weren't going to win. Yeah. Because they didn't have enough time to get to the end. They were just going to try and play out the story and that was that. And they changed their mind. They said if they could do these next few rooms well, they would put the team into a winning status. Yeah. And they would get a good ending and end the series. Yeah. And that's essentially what happened. And the series was something along the lines that there was a troll or something being set off, you know, to attack the castle, and they had to get a hammer back to Treguard so he could use magic to destroy the troll or something like that. Unless I'm mixing up with Series 7, because as I said, they did a few. Yeah. They did one where a red dragon was set off to attack the castle and different bits. I actually really enjoyed those. They gave you a sense of tension. Will you know?
More of a storyline.
Yeah, and that it was meant as being a sort of interactive, but it was actually the mix between something that was scripted and something that was interactive that made it work so well. Because you know, when you have the characters, most of that's pre-scripted. When you have, you know, the ending of the series or whatever, that's pre-scripted. Lord Fear and his dialogues and setups, they're all pre-scripted. You know, they're not ad-libbing all that. But when a Dungeoneer goes up to a person and that they're meant to give, say, a key to, and the Dungeoneer starts basically faffing around with everything but the key, the actor has to do that all on the fly. Yeah. I do remember some of them said that they found it very hard.
I can imagine, yeah.
And they had initially loads and loads and loads of permutations that they had to learn of lines and status. Yeah. And especially the older actors just said that was a nightmare. Yeah. But anyway, I think we've probably done
a lot of background on that.
A lot of background. Yeah. One more thing before we go on. An absolute favourite, Smirkanov, the dragon. When he was first introduced, it was in Series 4 with the Eye Shield. He'd no voice. And
they gave him a voice later on.
They did. His voice. Do you remember the red mage with the white hair?
Yeah.
Oh, what was his name?
Well, this is going back to childhood.
I only watched this recently, and it's a very... I know his magic calling name is Malefact. Yeah. He called the name Malefact 3 times and you summon him. Hordrus the Confuser. That's it. And his daughter was Sidrus the Confused.
Well, I guess he worked.
So, but Hordrus had this great deep voice, and he used that for Smirkanov, and it, you know, it really sounded noble for a dragon. Yeah. And you'd get the ride of the dragon. But anyway, love Smirkanov. So, that was then, and Geek Week, out of the blue. Literally, it was out of the blue. Yeah. Even for production, they had 2 weeks to do it. It was get a new episode of Knightmare for Geek Week.
That must have been kind of a shock for Tim Child.
Well, I mean, there have been attempts to redo Knightmare in the past. Yeah. Knightmare VR. I don't know. Do you know anything about that?
No.
That's slightly disturbing. Basically, it was going to be entire CG, including the Dungeoneer, who was going to be able to see, because they were basically just a CGI character in the game. Yeah. And it was terrible. There's demo videos of it online that were done for kind of piloting purposes. Just not good. So, Geek Week came along, but it was going to be based on old school Knightmare. I was so stunned. I couldn't believe it.
I was delighted when I heard.
Yeah, I was like, God, that's great news. Even if it is just a little kind of a special almost.
Yeah.
And when I watched the episode, that's kind of what it came across as to me. As this isn't necessarily Series 9 of Knightmare. This is more of a fan service.
Yeah.
Now, there's been... Generally, the reaction was positive. Most people were just delighted to see Traeger back and, Lord Fear back and the dungeon back and, that type of thing. It was... The fact that it was there was enough. And to a certain degree, I fell into that category. There was a few complaints. I'm wondering how you feel on that.
I felt it started very poorly, actually. It was the kids. I'm going to call them kids. They're probably teenagers.
Not only are they teenagers, they're probably in their 20s, and they're YouTube sensations.
Whatever.
The kids.
I felt... Now, maybe I'm just picking them up wrong. I felt that they were almost doing it in an ironic way. I felt they were very disrespectful at the start. Now, I know we're kind of making Knightmare sound like a religion, but
they disrespected my religion, man.
They disrespected my childhood, or at least that's what they came across as at the start. Like they were kind of hamming it up for the camera and all of that. But I felt that as it went on, they kind of got into it. I was like, oh well, it's a game. It's fun to control our friends' movements.
Yeah.
They kind of got into the spirit of it, and like after that first kind of 5 minutes, 6 minutes, they kind of got into it and just played the game. And I thought, lovely, just as a one-off, it was nice to see it again. Once they got past the whole we're making fun of this thing.
Funny enough, the complaints that you have there is actually very much in line with what I've heard. A lot of people have said that they weren't that keen on the opening for two reasons. One, they thought the pacing was a bit slow, and the CGI anti-chamber instead of the real chamber was not great. Now, Tim Charles has come on record and said the only reason that was like that was because we did not have time to make a set.
Yeah.
So we had to do incredibly quick use of setup. So
I could understand
exactly.
That. Yeah, that's fine.
It was done on a shoestring budget with no time, so I was willing to forgive editing issues and sound effects issues, which there were, and visual issues. I didn't mind that. I knew it was done in no time. The team, and this is again no offense to anyone in it, because I've heard...
Actually, no, screw you. Plenty of offence. If you're watching this, offence!
Okay, he is offending you. I'm more taking I don't know what directions they were given, because I know that there were certain requirements from Google as the product sponsor for things. And I know that there possibly was a case of wanting to put a personality across. But you're right. When the quest got further in... and things settled down to we're playing the game Knightmare. They improved a lot more. The first 6 or 7 minutes, it did feel like that there was almost a parody of Knightmare.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, whoa! I know it's not a religion per se, but
speak for yourself.
Well, that's why he's offending. There is a certain.
Okay.
That's why there's a certain degree of seriousness. You kind of want to take the game somewhat serious.
Yeah.
Because although it's a game, it meant a lot to people. I mean, that's why they brought it back. It's because it had that kind of connection.
Yeah.
When ITV ran a poll there recently of online, basically favourite TV shows for kids.
Must have been up there.
It was number 2. Actually, it might have finished number 1. It was It and Funhouse were miles away.
Funhouse.
Those two were miles ahead of number 3. Literally, the two of them got over 70% of the vote, and every other show got 30% combined. So.
But I wonder then, we take things seriously that matter to us. Whereas, we've just gone through a whole load of games and said, I haven't heard anything about this. It might be good, it might be not. That's cool, grand. I've heard about this. I've heard it's a bit terrible. And that could mean quite a lot to someone who says, well, I made that game. I wrote the entire storyline for that game. It has its problems, but, it's treat it with respect. And we don't. We just go, meh.
But to be fair, I often do, when I'm playing a game, just a singular gameplay or whatever, I do try when I'm coming up with my opinions to think, okay, maybe this isn't perfect, but people can be overly harsh on things too.
Yeah.
Now, there are sometimes where games are just very poor.
Yeah.
Poor implementation, there's nearly no excuse for it. But yeah, you can be rubbing people up the wrong way. But yeah, Knightmare Geek Week, when I watched it, I was kind of going, this could still work. They could do this series of Knightmare.
As long as it was actually aimed at kids.
You think it should be aimed at... See,
genuinely
there's been a debate on that front. They were teens. Well, probably 20s, whatever.
Yeah.
And Tim Child is not sure that the market would support a child-based show anymore. Now, whether or not that's the best way of doing the game is another thing. He's kind of saying that the market wouldn't support it. And he might be right.
He might be right on that.
But I personally do prefer teams that are around 10 to 13 years of age.
I would actually go a bit higher. I would say anywhere in the 15, 16 range.
Right. Yeah, up to that, that's fine too. Where you want them to have a little more cop on, but not too... Once you start getting too old, then they start joking around. When you're younger, they seem to kind of take it more seriously.
Yeah.
Which means they get into it more. You can let themselves go.
Yeah, well, it's the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Can an adult really let themselves go and, right, we're helping the Dungeoneer? Whereas a kid can just go, it's a game, we're helping the Dungeoneer, bang, and it's like that. And you can see it in some of the other games, the earlier series.
Yeah.
The kids, and they were very, very young at the start, they just go, right, we're in it, right. They're in character, for want of a better word, like, straight away.
Funny enough, they were in character by not being in character.
Yeah. That was it. It's a game we're playing back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember as a kid thinking, God, I would love to go on that show.
My brother applied, actually.
Oh, he did?
My brother applied to go onto it, and they cancelled it before
this was Series 8.
Yeah.
Because they did put up at the end of Series 8, if you would like to be on a future series, because they did not know it was going to end. No. In Series 6, I think it was nominated for basically one of these television awards for Best Children's Program. Now, at that point in time, ITV basically never won anything.
Yeah.
It was all politics. So they did not win. But they were basically the show that should have won.
Yeah. And that would have given it a couple more seasons easily.
But if they had won that, they would have been guaranteed 3 more series. But they didn't. So the new managing directors basically said that the age demographic for Knightmare was starting to move out of their target demographic, where Knightmare was a kind of an older aim show, and they were aiming more at the younger bracket, so it was no longer a fit, even though its ratings were still very good. Like, by the end, it was still being well viewed, and some people consider the last series was kind of coming back up again.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I actually felt that the 2 series before that were a bit better, but there was no... To me, no Knightmare is bad Knightmare. That type of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what I'd say about the Geek Week. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Not perfect. Not my favourite episode.
Once they actually started to play the game.
Yeah, it was.
And they weren't making kind of witty comments or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I'm sure something dangerous will go off in here at one point.
It's like, yeah, you're damn right. You disrespect the Dungeon Master one more time, there'll be a bomb in the next room.
They spoke over Traeger too much.
Yeah, which is why I think it should be aimed at kids.
Yeah.
Whereas, they
respected him.
Yeah, plus he comes across as a nice man, and he has that kind of
beard,
authoritarian...
like you.
He has a beard, and a beard is a good thing. I don't know why I said thang there.
Traeger would never have said thang.
No, he would not have. And that's why Traeger is better than me. But yeah, he has that kind of authority that I don't think kids would interrupt him too much. If he says, look, you need to be taking the bag of gold, you'll take the bag of gold.
Although he rarely give it so direct.
Exactly, that's right, yeah.
It would be more like,
he was subtle.
Perhaps you should stop sliding over to the left there, Tony.
Yes.
So you're going to slide out of camera. You can readjust.
Just replace me, it's fine.
Just... A musical interlude.
This has nothing to do with Knightmare.
Talk about Knightmare 2.
We're done? Okay.
Yeah, we're done with our musical interlude. Ad break time.
Nothing. Anyway.
But yeah, Treguard, he was good.
Yeah.
Hugo Myatt, still got it.
He really does, yeah.
You don't disrespect Treguard.
No, you don't.
Even at the end when they died, he had to wait for fucking ages before he could do his ooh nasty.
Yeah.
And normally Treguard would do that first. That's the first reaction.
Yeah. I think the players are usually kind of stunned, like,
yeah,
made a mistake. Whereas, they're just kind of like, oh, I can't believe we did that. Which I can understand. I didn't mind that. The one thing I was really hoping to see was, they used to do, I don't know if they did it in the later series, but they had the Dungeoneers, they would be spellcasted out of the castle, and they'd be given like little scrolls saying, oh, thanks for playing Knightmare, and you'd see the four of them kind of walking off into the CGI sunset. Yeah. And I would have liked to have seen that.
I don't think they did it in the very last series, but they did it certainly in the early series. I know exactly what you're talking about. They used to spell, it was either spellcast dismiss.
Dismiss, yeah.
If they were getting rid of, or was it like winner or champion, or there was a different hero, actually. I think it might have been hero if you won. There was a couple of winning spells as well.
Yeah.
Not that many people won, mind you.
I did like the form of spellcasting, actually.
Yeah.
It was because it was kind of aimed at kids as well. Spellcasting is you had to spell out the name and then say it, like spellcasting, D-I-S-M-I-S-S, dismiss.
No, you never said dismiss. That was only in the Geek Week one.
Oh, really?
It was literally spellcasting, H-E-R-O.
And then it was okay.
No, it came up on screen, the letters.
So maybe that's why I remember it.
Yeah, I think it was anyway.
I learned all of my vocabulary from Knightmare.
Yeah. And how to spell. there was one great one actually where
that's why I failed school.
There was a guy that kept spellcasting but spelling it wrong.
Oh yeah.
and the guy, like the actor in the scene, had to basically keep trying to drag. He was laughing. No. He was doing this evil laugh. And he had to keep laughing because they kept spellcasting wrong. And they never spellcast it right.
Oh god! It's like, yeah, get out of the room, just run. Okay.
Literally, they just kind of ran, and then they killed him off in the next room.
There was one actually when we were talking about Knightmare ages and ages ago, and I said, "Oh, I must have a look, see if they're on YouTube." They were all there. So I went on, watched the first couple of episodes, and I'm going down into the YouTube comments. It's like, "Oh, that was me. That was the little blonde kid making the mistakes." Like, okay, kudos. Yeah, so you're there watching it. You're commenting on your own video, which is
actually really
cool. Yeah.
I like to hear those tales of what it was like as well.
Yeah,
people.
Yeah.
There was another kind of famous death, and it ties into another famous saying: "Sidestep to your left."
Oh yeah. Your other left.
No, but this one was, they walked into a room with basically a big hole to his left. He could go forward, right, anywhere else, and they go, Simon, sidestep to your left, and he just goes. He just sidesteps.
Oh yeah.
He just sidesteps and goes, woo! And the animation of him going, woo, literally. It's one of the funniest deaths in Knightmare. And I don't mean to be laughing at them, because they're kids or whatever. Yeah. You make mistakes, but it was unintentionally hilarious. Like, and he said it with such authority too. It was so rushed. It was literally, Simon, sidestep to your left.
You can only imagine the backstory to that. Like, oh, you stole my homework class.
You could see
Simon. Down you go, Simon. Okay.
The other two advisors are kind of like, what the f*** did you just do?
Nasty.
That's exactly what it is. But anyway, I think we've been rambling for long enough.
Yes.
The fires have burned, and we're probably approaching a temporal disruption. Join us next week for another episode of something else on YouTube.
Before we go, would you like to see Knightmare Returned?
Absolutely.
You heard it here first.
Would you?
I'd love to, yeah.
Oh, God.
I'd go on it. I'd love to go on it.
Do you know what I am so annoyed about?
Okay, I won't go on it.
No, I only found out something recently. There is a thing called Knightmare Live. Official. where they do a live showing of Knightmare. I don't know if you can get on the team, but you can go and they have a Traeger, not you go my out, and apparently it's excellent.
Really?
Yeah. It's an hour-long show and it's on for a tenner.
Where?
Did I just say it's an hour-long show and it's on for a tenner?
Yeah.
It's a tenner for an hour-long show. It's on, but only if someone pays a tenner. Someone slaps a tenner on the table. It's on, bitch!
Boom. It's like, I've been waiting here 3 days for someone to pay a tenner.
Why didn't you? Yeah. But anyway, apparently it's very good. Only found out about it recently. Yeah. I would so want to
England?
Of course it's England. Unfortunately. And not... We'll discuss that another day. Anyway. We did a good ending, and now we've kind of backtracked. Ah! Come up with a good ending while I get behind the camera.
Spellcasting. G-O-A-W-A-Y.